She spent a season alone, tending her sheep herd in the Wyoming wilderness, warding off predators and loneliness, and wrote about it. Cat Urbigkit, next on Wyoming Chronicle. Hello, I'm Richard Ager. Welcome to Wyoming Chronicle. Now, I'm not sure how many of us would spend much of a year in the Wyoming wilderness tending to a sheep herd and then writing about it. But our guest, Cat Urbigkit, has done just that and much more. So, Cat Urbigkit, welcome to Wyoming Chronicle.
Thanks for having me.
A couple of recent books we should point out here. You have this one about two guardian animals of yours, which we'll talk about a little later, and that's the Guardian Team. And this book, The Shepherds of Coyote Rocks, Public Lands, Private Herds, and the Natural World. A lot of substance and a lot of that you ended up thinking about during your months and months journey with your herd.
Yes, and the book describes everything from the encounters that I had with animals and nature throughout my time there. But as I'm walking around in the sagebrush tending to my sheep, I also reflected upon the role of pastoralists, people who tend to livestock, throughout the globe.
And you know, your own personal background, of course, your family had actually had a farm which was lost during the agricultural depression in the 70s. And you spent, 10, 12 years or so at least doing reporting.
Yes.
But then you decided to leave that easy life behind, right? You got a sheep herd.
I became sane. Yes, my husband and I started a sheep outfit with some orphan lambs. They're called bum lambs, given to me by another sheep producer who I was doing some reporting about. And when I held the first baby lamb on my lap and the beautiful baby and was feeding it milk through a bottle, and its beautiful dark eyes were looking me in the eye, I fell madly in love and was a goner, and I've been a shepherd ever since.
I'll read a quote from your book. Raising sheep had become more than my livelihood. It had become my life, an essential part of my identity. You started to describe the hold that these, yeah, they're cute, creatures have on you, but there's a lot of work involved.
There is a lot of work. It's animals, when you live and work with animals, they become your working partners. And I'd always heard that sheep were stupid and weak and things like that. And when I actually met sheep and started taking them out on the range, I realized that these things are tough boogers that have survived to produce food and fiber for humans for eons, and they were not what I had assumed.
That's interesting. So you would actually make a case for a certain kind of intelligence for sheep?
Oh, you bet. Actually, I think for most animals, I think we tend to discount the intelligence of animals, but I think until you actually live with them in a very close way, as livestock producers around the globe do in primitive agriculture, and I think you have a little different understanding. So
now, raising sheep, of course, one way to do it would be simply on a farm, but you have actually traded the safety and warmth of barns and paddocks for the open range in the Wind River Mountains, where you knew, and I will quote you, you knew you would face treacherous bogs, poisonous weeds, and biting flies. Why did you take the tough route?
Actually, I think it's a more natural system of food production and of animal production in the first place. The things that I was doing with my sheep were actually watching, while we were at our ranch without the sheep moving, we were actually watching the wildlife herds migrate seasonally, going into the higher elevations in the summer when the temperatures were warmer, and escaping flies and biting insects and things like that by going into the high altitude areas. And then, of course, when the winter snows start pushing the wildlife out of the mountains, they come down into the lower elevation range.
So would you actually follow the herds of the antelope?
And we actually use some of the same trails. I mean, this is actually happens throughout the globe. People have done this for thousands of years. It's called Transhumance. It's the seasonal movement of people and livestock, and it really is mimicking the natural patterns.
So you're really taking your cue from nature.
Absolutely.
Well, having read the book, of course, I'll never think of shepherds the same way. I think that most people have kind of a simple concept of a shepherd as someone who just sort of keeps an eye on the herd from time to time. But the reality, of course, as you make it very clear, is very much more complex, day and night.
Absolutely. Like I said, it's a working partnership, but especially, different times of the year, your responsibilities to the livestock are different. But during lambing, especially while the ewes are out there giving birth on the open range, out in the sagebrush, I mean, it can be spring storms are always a substantial event, and that goes to show how tough they are. But I really need to be out there and among them to make sure that everything is all right and helping out where I can. And especially during lambing, it's really about every 2 hours I am going through, checking everyone again and again and again. And then, of course, as the lambs really begin to grow and are able to travel more and things like that, then they don't require as much of my time. But I'm still with my sheep every day.
It seems such a contrast. Cows give birth to their calves, usually in a barn. There's often a vet present. You, on the other hand, your sheep are out in the middle possibly of a storm in the sagebrush, not exactly the most inviting area to be, giving birth.
Think of my fellow shepherds, my friends in Mongolia that are going through the same thing. Or, these animals have been. I guess evolution has made them what they are.
Maybe
that they
they're
can do
tougher
that.
than we
They are, But I think that a range sheep or range cattle are different from some of the farmstead cattle. I think we kind of we can breed animals to be more dependent upon us, or we can let nature take its course. And the tougher animals are the ones that survive and are well suited to the range.
Now, a few basics on how you made your journey. It was about 40 miles over the months that you were out on the open range with your herd. How does the herding go? You don't use horses. You need to move your camper around so that you have some place to stay. But how does it work? How do they know where to go?
It's mostly me on foot with one small livestock herding dog, a bearded collie, and we actually move the sheep to fresh grazing range every day. My camp will stay in one spot for a week, and then I would move my camp, mostly so I wouldn't just completely trample the vegetative matter around my camp. But the sheep, I was kind of grazing them in a circle out from my camp and moving them into water every day if they needed to. So, and it's just, and actually my 40-mile trek is actually a relatively short one for range sheep production. I mean, I have friends and neighbors who their journey is 125 miles one way.
Boy, Wyoming and our water issues, is it hard to find water someplace?
Absolutely. When you're looking at trying to find water in July and August, especially. In the desert country can be dangerous, and you have to be very careful as your water levels decrease about the animals not getting down into something and getting stuck.
Now, there's a lot of different terms that you actually introduce. You're educating your readers as you go
Yes,
along.
I am.
One of the terms is called, and you've mentioned it, transhumance, which is that movement of livestock, or I guess wild animals?
Transhumance is the seasonal movement of people with their livestock. So yes, and it's seasonal. So as the seasons change and the vegetation changes and the weather changes, nature drives those movements.
Now, do you count cowboys among that brother sisterhood?
You bet. Cowboys are definitely pastoralists, and they
Another term, yeah.
and they are involved here on the western rangelands. Are involved in the seasonal movement of livestock. So yes, they practice transhumance as well, just as the Maasai do in Africa.
So if you go up to a cowboy in a bar and say you practice transhumance, what's going to happen?
Well, they might want to know exactly what you mean.
I have a dictionary with you. Speaking of which, in dicey situations, I'll read a little bit from your book here. After dark, the coyotes begin yowling, calling the dogs out to the hills, and this is when our dogs do battle with them. Few physical conflicts are seen with human eyes. But what's the usual result when your dogs, your guardian dogs, have gone off to do battle?
My guardian dogs are absolute warriors, and they they almost always win, and my dogs will fight to the death to protect their herd. But when it comes to coyotes, for the most part, you know, they're pretty good at just physically intimidating them, and then of course the sound of several large guard dogs with their booming voices, those deep throated barks really seems to intimidate coyotes. But
do the coyotes ever learn? Is it like Wile E. Coyote? Or?
You know, sometimes they learn really well though, because coyotes are very intelligent animals. That is one of the reasons why I curse them so often, because they will seem to employ all kinds of sneakiness to try to get into my sheep. But fortunately, the guardian dogs do a fabulous job, and sometimes they run the coyotes down and kill them as well.
I tell you, I mean, it was starting to read like Vietnam. I mean, attacks at night. I mean, this is warfare. You know, the animals involved.
That is a constant thing that takes place on the rangelands. We have abundant wildlife populations, abundant predator populations, and if you have sheep, they will come.
So, how are the dogs trained? I mean, obviously they know well how to fight, but is there specific training for them, or is this more an instinct with their breed?
It is thousands of years of breeding have made these animals very instinctual.
And the name of the breed that you have?
We use a variety. Actually, we use Turkish Akbash and Central Asian Ovcharkas.
Yeah, you can't get those in the pet store.
No, they're pretty specialized dogs. They're actually either fairly nice to people or really don't concern themselves with people that they don't know, but they're absolute ferocious in their protectiveness of the herd. They have high levels of canine aggression, so that any other canine that tries to come in, any stray dog that wants to attack the sheep or coyotes or anything like that. But one of the things that we do, even though we know that they've been bred for thousands of years to do this, since we raise the guardian dog pups, litters of pups, before their eyes are even open, we bed their natal den with wool that's shorn from our sheep. So before the puppy's eyes are ever open, they're laying in that warm wool and getting the smell of the sheep and everything. And then, of course, once their eyes are open, then they can go out and meet a sheep. And they have this wonderful association before their eyes are ever open. And the bond that they develop with the herd is very intense.
You know, of course, you having all of that time out in the middle of nature, you had a number of really interesting other encounters with other creatures. There was one that caught my attention between a very large male sage grouse and your GMC pickup truck.
Yes, I don't know if he was actually courting the truck or challenging the truck or exactly what he was doing, but I was trying to just photograph them and be quiet, so I would shut the truck off. But every time I would shut the truck off, this beautiful male sage grouse would then walk away, and I would fire up the truck to leave again, and then he would race back over when he would puff up, and he would be doing his strutting and all of this stuff. And apparently he liked the decibel level on my loud ranch truck. And yes, I eventually had to let him win and give up the territory to him. So.
Oh, so that relationship didn't work out.
Yes.
You were talking about, of course, the guardian dogs and their native intelligence. You're a photographer and have been for many years, but you noted that you've had a really hard time being able to photograph them stalking predators because they become almost invisible.
They do, and actually, the coyotes are. Our guardian dogs are a lot like the coyotes in their cleverness. My dogs will lay in the deep sagebrush where they could see the sheep herd below them watching, but where they're hidden and they can't be seen. And or if there's a dead animal or something, dead wildlife or something like that, my dogs will actually sometimes lay in the brush near them and wait for a coyote to come into that. So they at times are very, very difficult to photograph. I have been lucky a few times. I've got to photograph a couple of my dogs going after coyotes and also after a fox as well. So,
when we talk about predators, of course, there's wolves. Kevin Costner had his dances with wolves. You've had
dances with many species. You know, that was the great thing about being out on the range, is that I was exposed to so many different wildlife species. And it's everything from you know, a little American kestrel that hovered over the top of me and the herd checking us out when we first moved out onto the range. And I actually saw the same bird every day as it went about its work on its territory there, to the sage grouse and like you said, all the predators, of course, that we encounter through the seasons.
You know, of course, not to focus too much on this, but you've long hosted a website on wolves. I'm wondering what you think of the results of the first year of the Wyoming wolf management plan.
Well, it certainly seems to have made some wolf hunters, some pretty happy. We actually haven't felt much of the impact. Our herd, I think the area that we're in, that some of the hunters, you know, were actually just right outside the trophy game area and the predator zone. So I think that some of the hunters were able to knock out some of the packs that were near us. So we actually haven't had any wolf encounters recently with our herd, and
so
knock on wood.
Okay, so you're fairly happy with
you bet.
How it's going? Because it was such an emotional issue. You know, there is a current lawsuit that is attempting to reinstate the endangered species status to the wolf. ANRA, Safari Club are trying to intervene. Do you think this is just going to keep flaring up again?
You know,
because I know you spent a lot of years on it.
And I think that wolves are a charismatic species, especially in terms, well, on both sides, I guess. People that either want to hunt them or people that don't want them hunted at all. But for us livestock producers out on the ground, wolves are just another species on the landscape with us now, and we have to kind of learn to live with them, and but realize, of course, that there will be conflicts, and just as some of our livestock will die, some of the wolves will have to die as well.
But the biggest trouble to you, though, is, I'm getting the sense, not wolves. It's
right. We have problems with wolves just somewhat sporadically, but coyotes are our everyday common predator. We have coyotes that challenge my dogs trying to come into the herd every single day. So Western Wyoming is blessed with abundant wildlife herds and with abundant predator populations.
That's you read in your book, when a sheep man refers to a person as a coyote, it's the ultimate insult. Well, clearly you
Indeed.
Don't hold them in much high regard. At least wolves get more respect, right? Even if you don't want them. There's a lot of surprises in your book for readers. Continuing on the predator front, ravens. I had never thought of ravens, as a danger to somebody who is raising sheep. They're birds, but you point out that, in fact, particularly at the birthing stage of young lambs, they are a real problem.
They are, and if you actually take a look at a raven, I mean, they're actually a pretty large-sized bird with a huge beak.
And they're federally protected.
They
too.
are federally protected. So when a livestock producer has a problem with the raven, it's not anything that they can take care of on their own.
Can't go.
Right. You really have to call in federal officials to deal with any damage situations that are caused. And what happens with ravens are ravens will begin to attack a ewe that's laying down trying to give birth, and will really start to harass that ewe. And then as soon as the lamb has actually been born, the ravens can't pick up a lamb and fly away with it or anything like that, but they will get on it and start pecking its eyes out, and lambs can't survive this. And of course ravens are a species that flock together, so you never have a problem with a single raven. It's you really begin to attract them if they can, and they're intelligent animals, so they learn what a food source
can be. Well, they can move pretty quickly. I mean,
they can.
If you're in a field and you're 300 yards away, you may see a flock descend, but what can you do? Right.
Unfortunately, our guardian dogs have developed a hatred for ravens because they know the problem. But really, we have to call in federal wildlife officials to take care of the ravens and that.
Well, okay.
Yeah. So it's not anything that we can take care of on our own.
In your guardians, of course, we've talked about the dogs, but one that surprised me again was the use of burros, wild burros. Kind of a cute animal, but not one I had ever thought of as a fighting animal.
And it's one that we actually have an excess of on Western rangelands, because the wild burros that I'm talking about they're not miniature burros. They're 700-pound animals, and they've evolved over the years to have a natural aversion to canines. So that's coyotes, dogs, foxes, whatever. So they actually make they're social animals, so they make very good guardian animals. They bond really quickly.
You know, that of course brings me to your book, The Guardian Team,
Yes.
which is about the relationship that developed between a burro and a dog. It's also, I might add, just won the Book of the Year award from the American Farm Bureau, so congratulations on that.
Thank you.
How did these two transcend that barrier between species?
With close adult supervision from me, because you know, they started out as the scraggliest wild burro in the BLM adoption corral of the excess wild burros from the desert Southwest, and then Rena, the guardian dog, was actually the runt of the guard dog litter. So. Rena was actually trying to protect the baby lambs that she was with from the burro, trying to keep the burro away from them. Of course, the burro is trying to protect the lambs at the same time and trying to keep the dog away. So it actually took a couple of weeks for those two to finally realize that they were actually on the same team, that they were trying to do the same thing to take care of the baby lambs. So once they realized that and started figuring that out, then I could leave them alone without so much supervision. And they've actually developed a working relationship. They are the guardian team. They work together to take care of the sheep. So, and they're all still alive and well on the ranch today. So
now I'll just have to ask you about the question that probably a lot of kids would ask if you're out for months and months on the range and you don't have a full bathroom in your camper. What do you use?
Well, I have a custom toilet. It's a old plastic molasses tub that when turned upside down, I had my husband install a wonderful toilet seat on top of it. So you just take your shovel and your portable toilet and go sit it out with whatever view you would like to have for the day.
And that's the best part, isn't it? Just picking the view that you want.
Yes, because there's plenty of Wyoming rangelands that does not get much human use at all. So yes, it's
now,
beautiful.
A lot of what you talk about here is land use and what you sometimes see as misuse of the land. And you talk about a term I hadn't heard before, conservation refugee, those who have been displaced from their traditional lands in the name of environmentalism.
Yes, and of course, most people, if you know the term conservation refugee, you might think of it in association with people from other areas of the world. If you have, actually there's many areas of Africa that have been set aside as national parks or reserve or wildlife reserves that are for use by tourists, but the traditional people that use that for livestock grazing and subsistence hunting and things are no longer allowed to use that. That has created a population of people called conservation refugees. My fear is the way that our federal land management is going in the western United States. We are shutting off more and more of our public lands to traditional uses of that land, and again, creating another population of conservation refugees.
You know, you had an encounter with wild horses, which got you onto what, for whatever reason, is a controversial topic, promoting the consumption of horse meat. Give me the short version of why that would be a good idea. Well,
the short version of that is I was with some horsemen in Mongolia, and these are people that rely on horses for their lives and their livelihoods. And when we talked about how we deal with animals here, they were pretty appalled to learn that when a person is finished with their horse, they kind of turn it out to pasture to let them die of old age, things like that. Or with our wild horses, we allow them to die out on the range during the wintertime. And the horsemen that I talked to said that they thought that was a cruel thing to do, that if you have an animal that has served you well, that when it begins to falter, that you should actually do a blessing over the animal and humanely put it down, and then eat the animal so that it continues to nourish you.
That would certainly take some social attitude adjustment. Just a couple of minutes left, but you talked about, I guess, what I would call the presence of history out on the range. So many of the Western trails, and I'm wondering how you felt as you were out there and in the midst of that.
You know, I I can't imagine out walking through the sagebrush with my animals and not reflecting upon the people that have walked there before me. And it's amazing because we think of our landscapes here as these pristine landscapes, and in reality, if you look at those old trails, and you can't look across the landscape without seeing old trails. I realized while I was out with my sheep that there were thousands of people that have walked those same trails that I was walking, and hundreds of thousands of livestock that, even though it seemed pristine and I was out doing it by myself, this is actually something that had been taking place for a very long time by a lot of other people. So it was a pretty fabulous connection.
You know, you had an encounter with a distant encounter with a federal ranger. And the federal rangers and the bureaucracy they represent get under my skin. Short version.
Well, I feel that there's really over-regulation of public land users. And it doesn't matter, and it's amazing to me. I'm out there doing what I think is a pretty simple and natural thing to do. Like I said, that it's been taking place for thousands of years all over the globe, and I have these rangers come in and sit on a hillside with their binoculars to watch me.
Okay. You know, we're just about out of time, but you have a traveling art exhibit. Give me a short version of that.
It's called Portraits of Pastoralism, and it's a traveling public art exhibit. It will make its debut later this fall here in Wyoming to start with, and it's pastoralists from all over the globe.
And I understand you're taking it to South Africa.
Yes.
So congratulations on that. Thank you, and that is all the time we have. Obviously, our thanks to Cat Urbigkit, and we will leave you with a brief look at her Portraits of Pastoralism.